keep moving. Yeah.
Hello and welcome to our Tuesday evening budget workshop. We're joined here by Director Roy and Chief Conley and Administrator Cainrad, Deputy Administrator O'Malley. Director Roy, please kick us off.
Tonight we will be going over police on page 42 and 44 of your books. The overall increase is $801,153 or 7.5%. Police administration is found on page 42. Overall increase of $72,392 or 10%. The personnel services increased $44,466 for steps and COLAs is the largest increase. Criminal Investigation Division on page 42. Overall decrease of $37,149. The overall decrease in this department is in personal services, a decrease of $36,163 for the frozen position that was discussed the very first night. Patrol is found on page 43. Overall increase of $403,200 or 6.5%. The largest increase is in supplies, in gas and oil, $286,700 for the gas for the take-home vehicles. Contracted services, an increase of $73,175 for repairs of vehicles, $55,150 for additional take-home vehicles. Support Service Division, page 43 and 44 of your books, overall increase $321,322 or 36.8%. The largest increase in contracted services and maintenance and license of $312,469 for the body camera maintenance contract, which increased $243,443, along with some other new items, a new flock camera, service contract $70,000, new recruit NAP $9,000, and new T2 ticket payment system for $10,331. Police building, found on page 44. Overall increase of $48,554 or 17%. The largest increase is in contracted services, $50,534 for cleaning services of $24,640, for additional cleaning of $11,000, deep cleaning of $3,840, and carpet cleaning for $10,000. Animal control officer can be found on page 44. Overall decrease of $7,166 or 6%. The full decrease is in personal services due to the new hire is lower than the individual who retired. And for the LCIP, in your LCIP book on page 31, is the discussion for the police take-home vehicle program of $5.2 million. That is the largest increases and decreases in police, and the chief is here to answer any questions.
Thank you, Chief, for being here. Appreciate your service to our city. Really quick, everything okay over there? Really quick question. Is our animal control officer, are they part-time, full-time?
They're full-time.
And they belong to just us?
Yes.
Like they're full-time in Lewiston?
Yes.
Got it. Okay, thank you. Further questions or comments for Director Roy and Chief Conley? Councilor Chittum, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Chief. Is the animal control officer a sworn officer?
No, he's not.
Okay, thank you. I'd heard a rumor that parking enforcement and animal control were both sworn officers, and that's...
No, they're civilians.
Thank you. Can you explain this T2 ticket payment system? What is that all about?
Yeah, so that is something that the support services Lieutenant St. Laurent has been working on with our parking enforcement. As you know, we only have one parking enforcement officer, and really our system right now is sort of antiquated. Right, exactly. So this is an automated service that allows her to ticket, and then as soon as the individual gets the ticket, they can pay with a QR code, and just it's immediately completed. So like the way the system works right now, she writes a ticket, then let's say you were the one that received the ticket. You go to this, okay, so hypothetically.
Excuse me.
Right. So you go to the station to pay for the ticket, if she has not been back to the station and given it to our records clerk, who has now entered it into the system, you would not even be able to pay for the ticket. It also has the ability to assist with, as I'm sure you're familiar, we changed the parking recently with the downtown area, and we have some that are shorter-term parking, which is more of a challenge, right, for her to keep up with. And it actually has the ability to take a picture instead of like chalking a tire. It takes a picture, and then she goes back through, it matches that picture, sees that the tire hasn't moved. It's really just much easier, much more efficient, given the fact that we have one parking enforcement officer. And then should the city decide to eventually go to some of the, different parking and fees that you see all across the country, right, with the QR codes where it's compatible with that, so.
Okay, thank you. Do we have the system in place now, or is this a new?
No, this would be a new purchase. This is something we're looking to obtain.
And if I heard you correctly, I get out to my car and there's a ticket on the window. Before I drive away, I can resolve this. I can pay it on my phone, and
Yes.
it can be taken care of just like that.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. I will have other questions, but I'll turn it over to anyone else.
Councillor Najin.
Since we're focusing on animal control and parking, one, what collective bargaining unit do those two employees sit with?
I actually am not sure, but I could get back to you on which one. I know there's a couple different collective bargaining units with the civilians, but I'm not sure which one they're part of.
It wouldn't be the patrol union.
No,
Okay.
that's a separate unit.
Also, the parking enforcement officer, are they still do not have the technology to verify whether or not there's like a call out on a license plate when they're ticketing, or are they able to ticket for unregistered vehicles? Any of those pieces that they were not able to do in the past because they didn't have the technologies for?
No, they're not certified to deal with unregistered motor vehicles. They're just civilian employees, so.
Okay. The reason why I bring this up is my car actually was unregistered. It had lapsed by like, I think a week or 2 weeks, and I had gotten a ticket. And I was surprised that I wasn't ticketed for having an unregistered vehicle as well. And so I guess the question is there like any cross, like, for instance, if I was the parking enforcement officer and I came across a vehicle that looked to be unregistered or uninspected, would I call that into the station to have that followed up on or not?
They certainly could call an officer over if they wanted to, but they wouldn't have the authority to issue like a citation for
But
that.
they wouldn't have, okay, gotcha. Well, that gives me a good idea of, so there's still kind of, I think, maybe some types of holes in, if we're going to change our parking enforcement rules, and who can enforce them, correct? Like, what I'm trying to get at is like, so for right now, we have this 24-hour tow rule unless you have $200 in tickets, and that's citywide for every section of the city. And what I was wondering is if we were to advance like parking zones, for instance, and say in this zone, you would be towed after 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours, and then also removing vehicles from our city streets that are unregistered. We don't have the capability of doing that without having an officer do it, correct?
Yeah, it really comes down to an authority aspect, right? Like, as a parking enforcement, a civilian employee, they do not have the authority to issue citations. That's for law enforcement personnel only. When it's related to like unregistered motor, that's a 29A violation versus just a city ordinance, a parking, what we determine as a city is a violation of our parking.
Okay, thank you.
I don't want to put you on the spot, Deputy Administrator O'Malley, but were you looking up where the individuals were, what
The union?
unions? Yeah, what unions they belong
Well,
to?
I think Council Najin answered his own question about if he was thinking they were part of the patrol union. They're not. They're part of, I believe, MSEA is their union that they're in.
Thank you very much. Further questions, comments? Councillor Chittum, what were you?
This is my second bite at the apple now.
Yeah, I'll do the counting, but thank you. Please continue.
I want to talk about take-home vehicles. Can you break out the additional costs? If take-home vehicles are not approved by the council this time around, You've got $55,000 increase in repairs. Is that all due to the take-home vehicles? Similarly, $286,000 for gas, for take-home vehicles, tires and tubes and so on. Are those all directly attributable, or is there some natural increase in the existing costs of the present fleet?
Right, so the way that we broke it down, and I think you all should have the memo on that kind of breaks everything down. It's, for 85 vehicles, our estimated repairs would be $55,000 of an increase. So Tracy might be able to explain it better, how it breaks down in the budget as far as the differences.
Correct. So if the take-home vehicles do not pass, items will be removed out. So under the gas and oil, there'll be $297,500 removed. Under repairs for vehicles, $55,250. And then for under the auto insurance, which is not in the police department's line, is under the miscellaneous, which we'll be going over on Thursday. $120,000 will be removed. So that will be a total of $472,750.
472,750?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. And the increase in maintenance contracted services for the new police building of $50,000, was this not anticipated, or is there more wear and tear to the building than we had planned on, or why are we looking at a $50,000 increase in cleaning services?
So those are numbers that Louis comes up with. He handles our the building maintenance. And my estimation would be that, we had an estimate of what it would cost, and actually being in the building, there's more to it at this point.
Okay, so can we get Mr. Turcott in here at some point? I don't see him.
Sorry, he was supposed to be here tonight to answer any of those questions. He may have just been running late or something.
Okay.
Probably happened.
Can you move the mic closer to you, please?
So I think when they took the estimate last year, it was just an estimate because they were not in the building. So now that they're in the building, they got the square footage, and they're looking at what they need to do for cleaning. That's why it's an increase from what they estimated last year.
Okay, that's a reasonable explanation. I'd like to hear that from Mr. Turcott, so I'd like to put a pin in that if we could.
Yep.
And finally, the other hot button topic is flock cameras. The cameras were purchased, or the first year lease on that, the first year subscription on that was paid for by a burn grant.
Yes.
And this is the first year that we'd be paying for these cameras out of the city budget.
Yes.
Could we have a summary, to the extent that you can share information, of the benefits that flock cameras have provided for us? There is an incredible amount of misinformation out there, as you know, Chief. A lot of people are up in arms about the privacy issues and all these other things. And some of that I buy, some of it I don't. Some of it is inflated. But I would like to know, for $70,000, what is the benefit to the city that we have seen in the one-year experience we've had with flock cameras paid for by outside sources, by that burn grant? I don't know if you have that information readily at hand, but if you could distribute that to the council and make it available to the public, I think that might go a long way to answering some of the concerns that have been expressed about the license plate reader camera system.
Certainly. I can tell you that we've been keeping a monthly report, update on, all of the benefits, whether it be shooting investigations, kidnappings, things along domestic violence, things along those lines. So we could certainly share that with you. And I can say that $70,000 is the amount that we were initially quoted. However, it does look like we have some wiggle room. There's been some conversations. There's a potential to get that contract. I spoke with Sergeant Brown the other day. We think possibly for $40,000. So don't hold me to that, but we are looking to get that at a cheaper,
Instead of 70, it would be 40.
correct.
I seem to recall that when the cameras first came in, there was a 3 or 5 year contract that was proposed, and it was $70,000 a year. But that's good news. If we can demonstrate the benefit and get it for 60% of the cost, that would go a long way, I think, toward making some minds up on the council. Thank you.
Councilor Longchamps.
Good evening, Chief. Thank you for everything that you guys do for our city. From my understanding, the take-home cars were really a great tool for getting new officers in. Is that correct?
Yes.
And other cities are doing this, or states?
Yeah, so we would be, in Maine, I would say we would be the first large municipal city. Sheriff's departments, it's very common, and state police, obviously. And you look at those two agencies, and they're full complement. And, you know, we interview people on a regular basis. We have a recruitment officer now that's her sole focus, and that is a very big thing to new officers. It is one of the first things that officers talk about. And for us, you know, we're always trying to be creative, right? And we understand that this is a big initial ask financially. But when we did the research on it and looked at, you know, the long-term outcome of how this would affect the budget, I really think it looks like in the long run, this is going to save us money as a city. And I think it's crucial for us. Like I said, we're just trying to be creative as we can in the avenues that we can as a department to get people to come to Lewiston. You know, we're down 15 people right now between, you know, how many open positions we have and people that are just in training or injured. And we're looking at in September being down 18. We have 3 that we know are retiring. And it's just, we're constantly playing catch up. And some of the conversations that a lot of officers have had with, you know, Maine is small, right, for law enforcement. So people talk, people go to the academy together. This is something that just it being out there, people are reaching out to our officers and saying, are you guys really going to get the cars? Are you, you know, is this going to happen? So, you know, we really do believe that it would be a very good recruitment tool.
And I was thinking, you know, because obviously we do have a very tight budget this year, you know, I don't want to see this shut down. I do think it's critical that we do things to recruit good officers. But maybe we're not able to do all of the 80, what was it, 80?
I believe it was 65 additional, right, that we would be needing.
Okay, so 65. You know, maybe we do half of that this year and then half. I just hope that us as council, you know, really take this in consideration, how critical it is for us to attract new officers. And if this seems to be an attractive tool, I'm just hoping that we can, I'd like to do all of them, but if we can't, I'd like to at least see us compromise and do half. So that's just what I'd like to say. And again, thank you for all you do.
Thank you.
Councilor Herman.
Thank you. So going back to the flock cameras, I believe when they were originally proposed, it was around $120,000 or $130,000 a year was the contract, and then Flock reduced it to $69,900, so it was just under the amount of the grant, and they waived the installation fees as well. So if their normal price is $120,000 or $130,000, and we're getting it for $70,000 now, but you're saying we could get it for $40,000, how does that work with? Is their pricing really that variable?
I'm just telling you what Sergeant Brown has been in conversations with them on. It sounds like, you know, like anything else, like when you go out and buy a car, right? You look at, you know, which dealer sells the car for a better deal. And, you know, obviously as departments, we talk with other departments and sometimes have an awareness of prices that they get on things that they purchase. So in talking with Sergeant Brown, he believes that we could get it for less than $70,000.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Najin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a few quick questions about, well, let's start with the vehicles. I think the first part that I would like to know is if we don't take the LCIP piece for the 65 vehicles or even half of the vehicles, we still need to buy replacement vehicles this year, correct? Do we still, and that's not built into any schematic that we're looking at right now? Okay.
Yeah, it was, but I believe they moved it into the LCIP.
Correct. So originally, they were under the capital items.
If you can move the microphone much closer to
Originally,
you.
they were under the capital items, the 4-5 account under police. All of the capital items were removed, if you remember, during the city administration's cuts, when we were looking at cuts to reduce the tax rate. All of those were removed. So if these do not pass, then we should look at least putting in vehicles that they'll need to replace.
Okay. And if you could just speak just really quick, I know recruiting is a super important, obviously, but could you just speak to like the timelines around putting somebody in the, how many people can go into the academy at once? How many people are actually in the academy? How long does it take to get somebody out of the academy? Because I think what I'm trying to illustrate here is that, like, in order to quickly fill these open positions, we're either taking from other departments in the state or recruiting from out of state for the most part. And you can tell me if I'm incorrect or incorrect on that and what the windows are for training.
So are you talking about in reference to somebody who's not certified in law enforcement, that process?
Correct. So let's say we
Not a
have an
blueprint.
applicant that we're interested in hiring. We're going to send them to the academy. What's the backup for getting them into the academy? How long does it take to get them out of the academy? And yeah.
You have 2 academies, police academies, a year in Maine. It's not like Lewiston has their own academy in Portland, right? There's 2 academies twice a year. So one in August, one that just started. The academy is 18 weeks long. The process for hiring somebody, I would say, tends to take about at least 2 months between the interview, the psych, the polygraph, the physical, all of that process. The academy's then 18 weeks, then they come out of the academy, and then they do at least 12 weeks of field training. So, I mean, your rough estimate, right, is probably close to a year before, if somebody's not certified as a police officer, to count. So, for example, we had a corporal retire. If we hired somebody the day after he retired, a couple weeks ago, we'd be looking at a year almost by the time that person's actually replacing that individual at our police department.
Okay. And let's say we had 15 applicants somehow that were going to go through the academy. Would there be enough spaces in August to send those 15 applicants?
That's unknown. That's the challenge with that. Because again, it's an academy that serves the entire state, so we can't always guarantee that we get those spots. There's, the past couple years, I think we've had better luck. There were times where we had, officers that we had to hire, and they were just at the station working, not certified, in order to get them locked into the next academy. Definitely during around like the COVID time, that was a major issue. Okay. So there's no guaranteed spots.
Yeah, Deputy Chief, either just, no. Our folks at home still would not be able to hear you.
A couple of things just to clear some things up.
And
So,
I greatly appreciate that, because I think the people at home have to kind
Yeah,
of.
One of the big things that these cars would do is we'd get blue pins, people that are already certified police officers in other towns, and that would bring in a lot of people that are already kind of standing by and waiting to see if this actually happens. We've had word to some of our officers that, hey, are you guys really getting them? Because if you are, we're coming. That's a big thing for these young officers these days. Now, on the academy, one of the things that once we get up to full staffing or get close to full staffing, if we have a cadre at the police academy, we can have as many people as we can put in that academy. We have open slot rights. Without that, it's done by date. Whatever time the applicant that we have is fully done their process and we say they're hired, then we can get them on a list at the academy, depending on when that occurs. But if we could have a few more employees, we could send a cadre to the academy and represent the city of Lewiston and be a cadre, and we can have as many slots as we want. So that's a benefit to getting a few more officers, so we can keep our head above water, because right now, we can't send anybody up there. We're just trying to cover the beats. If that helps you clarify it.
Certainly, thank you, I appreciate it.
And just to
Ca-
expand on that really quick, and that's the big difference between a blue pin versus a new hire that's not been certified. If you have somebody that comes from another agency, to get them up to speed and out on their own, it's generally, 4 weeks. It's a very quick turnaround for us comparatively to a year.
And so just to make this, to state this publicly, a lot of the people that reach out to me that have concerns usually have concerns about the amount of patrol that we have out on the streets and how often neighborhoods are patrolled. That's balanced against, obviously, the police department is the largest municipal side expense, but we're obviously not staffed enough to even make, when people have complaints, we don't necessarily have the people to deal with, like if a neighborhood says, I want to see a patrol every night, at 11 o'clock or something like that. That's not possible right now, correct?
I mean, we can try, but
Right.
we can't, we're in a position where we can't, our crime reduction unit isn't full, our community resource team isn't full. We're just, we're dealing with trying to staff 7 people to work at a time, to work shifts. And we handle 50,000 calls on average of service a year. So we're definitely stretched pretty thin.
Okay, I appreciate that. I just kind of want anybody at home in TV land to understand that there's a cost to staffing the department.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Councilor Roy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. One of the questions I had would be, how many vehicles were supposed to be in the budget for this year?
14, I believe,
14?
right, was what we requested, which is on average, what we request a year.
Okay. The other question would be, are we locked into the flock cameras for this year? Like, is there a way that we don't have to use them? And what would be the downside to not having them?
So we're not locked in. I mean, I believe it will expire in December, I believe. Don't quote me on that, but it's right around that time frame. The downside to getting rid of them, to be honest, is they're a huge resource to us. They're cameras that allow us to, they're a huge time saver. And being down the manpower that we are, we're trying to use resources that allow us to still function and solve crime, right? So we already rely heavily on all of the camera systems in the city. That's a huge resource to us. And these are just additional cameras. It's another reason why we're looking at the drone, for example. That's the first responder that, I'm sure most of you are familiar with the Maine Family Credit Union. We happened to have an officer who was drone certified and working that night, so it was great, so it assisted us. But if we had that first responder drone, that call would have come into dispatch and that drone would have been there before our officers were. So we're just trying to look at things that sort of balance, right, the fiscal issues that we deal with, but at the same time, the manpower issues that we struggle with.
Thank you for that. One of the questions that just came up as you were talking, so if we have other cameras, do we have to use the flock camera system? Like, can't we just use the other cameras? Because there's such a big, hatred to them.
And I understand what you're saying, and I understand people's concerns, but they do 2 very different things. What flock cameras focus on truly is license plates. So they connect things. So let's say you have a vehicle and you have, there's a suspect in a kidnapping or something like that. It's specific to the license plate and vehicle. Whereas our other cameras in the system, you could, get a complaint about anything in a specific area, and then you're researching different cameras. And then all the flock cameras communicate with each other, right? So if you're looking for a specific vehicle or a specific plate, and they decide to head out to Auburn or head out to Lisbon, or that does all the work for you, right? Because it tracks that particular thing you're looking for in the system versus us getting onto the system and going, let's check this camera. Okay, now I'm going to check this camera. And it's a huge time saver. And it, like I said, it focuses on vehicles and license plates versus our other cameras in the city just focus on a specific area.
Okay, appreciate that, thank you.
Councilor Martell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for coming tonight, Chief. So on the flock cameras, so 40 grand, if we had the manpower to do the work that these do for you, which we've established that we don't.
Could you talk into the mic?
Sorry, which we've established that we don't. What's the value of the work that you get for compared to the cost of 40,000? So what's an average officer make? 100 grand a year with overtime or something? Is that like a starting?
Possibly with overtime.
Yeah,
But I
okay,
think
maybe
like
a
a
little
starting
less.
officer is, with benefits, would you say 90? Right around that,
Yeah,
though.
I'm just
You're
trying to
pretty
make a point.
close.
So for
Yeah.
about a
Sorry,
the cost
Councilor
of-
Martell, please speak into the mic. Thank you.
Sorry, so for about the cost of a part-time officer, if it existed, you're getting this whole flock system, which is able to do a lot more work than, say, one officer. If you were able to pick up an extra officer or two officers, could two officers do the work that these flock cameras do in a year?
No.
Right, so we're getting an immense amount of value for the money that we are spending, is the point I'm trying to establish. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And for the take-home cruisers, how many of the blue pin dispatchable day one sending out to keep Lewiston safe officers do you think we could realistically expect to bring in, say, the first 12 months if we've got take-home cars ready to go and they're on the books and kind of like what we heard Deputy Chief talking about, the rumblings, hey, get these, we're here. Do you have any kind of ballpark number that we can expect to bring into the community?
So I hate to,
I know.
you know,
It's a
I can
horrible
tell you what
question.
I've heard, and it's very similar to 3 years or so ago when we got a pretty decent raise comparatively. There's a lot of chatter, 4 or 5 at least, is what I've heard, you know. And as I mentioned before, I mean, law enforcement in Maine's pretty small. People communicate, they stay connected. You know, they've gone to the academy with each other. There's definitely been people reaching out to our officers, you know, and saying, is this really going to happen? You know, we'd really consider coming over here.
And so, and this is mostly for people at home, because I do know this, but, so over 5 years, this is actually cost neutral or beneficial for the city. This costs less than the 14 cars a year on average that you said we normally buy and maintain, and the maintenance and everything on those. So this is actually a cost savings for cars for the department over a 5-year period. It's just a bigger initial outlay.
Yes, yeah, if you look at the, you know, if you go back 5 years and you look at the average increase every year, and then you span that out, and you guys would have that in the memo, we'll definitely save money in the long run on this.
So we're buying all of these cruisers at a fixed, pre-decided amount now, rather than risking however much they're gonna go up over the next 5 years for cruisers from wherever we get them from.
Yes.
Okay. That's what I've got for now. Thank you.
Yeah, Director Roy, yes.
So without overtime, it's $97,396 for an officer without overtime.
A couple of quick questions here, Chief. So I know you mentioned we're down, what, 15 officers?
Yes, between, down 8, and then between people that are only training right now, like in the academy or an FTO, and then 4 that are actually out injured. So we're running 15 short.
Okay, I think you just answered my question. I wanted to know how many, like, how many, if they presented, we could hire right now, and it would be 8 then?
8, yes.
Yes, okay, all right.
I say that, but we still have the 2 positions frozen, so I think we could only hire 6.
Okay, yes, understood.
Or 5 with the additional.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Longchamps.
Yes, I would just like to say, although I think the flock cameras are really ugly, they're big, but the reality is they're helping solve crimes much faster, especially in areas where people either just are accustomed to not wanting to share information or feel some sort of retaliation if they do, which happens a lot. You know, these flock cameras really are helping solve real crime. I think that's really what we need to be focused on. I don't think it's so much just that it's easier for an officer, right? I think it really has a great purpose. If it's getting license plate numbers. I know for certain, there are certain cameras that are set up from the city that for some reason aren't working at that time, so then you really have to rely on the folks that may have witnessed that won't say anything. So I feel as though these are definitely beneficial for that reason alone. And I do like, I didn't even think of the recruiting tool which was really dumb of me, for officers that are already seasoned. I mean, if we have officers that have already gone through training, they're already very knowledgeable, how much better would that be for our city to recruit some of those folks here? And I think a take-home vehicle too, just seeing them at different homes in different locations, could potentially deter certain things from happening. So that's just my thought on it. Thank you.
I can say, speaking to what you're referencing as far as people talking to us, I mean, I've been here for over 25 years now, and the reality is, and when I worked in patrol, I worked downtown, it's changed. We're in law enforcement, we really have to rely heavily on technology now. And, it can be frustrating for us as law enforcement that people don't want to talk, but I certainly understand why, you know what I mean? Because when I leave that scene, they have to live where they have to live and deal with who they're talking to us about. So technology in the past, I would say 5 to 6 years, has really, really been a huge tool for us, much more so than, 20 years ago.
Yes, Councilor Harriman.
Thank you. On the vehicles, how many of our staff live in Lewiston and how many live outside of Lewiston? And it's okay if you don't have that right now, if you could get that to us. Just thinking of the deterrent effect.
Yeah, I can certainly, I can't tell you off the top of my head, unfortunately, but I can get you a list of that.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Nagy.
Just really quickly, how many people on the force right now are able to retire tomorrow? Do you know off the top of your head?
Let me see if I have my memo on that. I know of 3 this summer that will be retiring for sure. They're in the drop program, so they're going to be retiring.
Isn't the majority of the folks that are in the drop program are from the police department, correct? I'm pretty sure. But what I'm just trying to figure out is how many people not are retiring but could retire.
Okay, so 12 can retire today. We know 3 of them will be retiring definitely this summer.
Okay.
And then in 26 and 27, we'll have 7 that can retire.
And how large is the force overall when it's fully staffed, which hasn't happened in a while?
86.
Okay, thanks.
So you'll be coming back to us with, or sending around a report on Flock and how it's been used here in Lewiston. Did I understand that correctly, Chief?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. Yes, Councilor Noble.
Can you also include in that the limitations that Lewiston has set in place on our flock cameras? I spoke with Sergeant Brown about it Monday, and I think it's important to add that so people know what we're doing to have more control over
Certainly.
them.
And we're more than happy to do some sort of presentation to you all if that would help. I mean, Officer Brown's pretty good, or Sergeant Brown, I should say, is pretty good about explaining that and taking the time. So if any of the council specifically want to come in and take a look at it or have questions about that, they're more than welcome to do that. But I can include that.
Thank you, Chief. Further questions for Chief Conley before we proceed? Did we do drug enforcement? Councilor Nagy, yes.
Sorry, I do have to weigh in on the flock cameras really quickly. And one of the things with the flock cameras is we know that very quickly, without even doing any field interviews, we can identify potential suspects as well as potential witnesses to crimes based on the vehicles that are in the area at the time and whether or not they've moved. And I think that's a key component here. I think the challenge that the general public has is a misunderstanding of when we're using this technology and how we're using this technology and who we're sharing it
We're
with.
sharing.
And I think that those are the parts that if we could be more clear with the public about, it's not necessarily like something that has to be explained just to the council in a council workshop. It has to be something that the public can understand so that some of these things that are being repeated, if they're not true, can clearly be shown. And some of the things that people are worried about, if we haven't thought about, we address. That's all. Because I can tell you right now, knowing how the technology works and also knowing how we are able to basically get information before we even completely understand all the different aspects of what crime has actually been committed is huge. The time frames in which we research things, that's how we solve crimes. The longer something sits out there, So I have no issue with the department using technologies. I get a lot of pushback from the constituency, from certain segments of the constituency that don't understand what controls we've put in place, and then also some of the information that is being shared publicly about concerns we haven't answered as a department, I think, and I think that's where we need to go.
Okay.
I'm sure that Chief Conley will put all of that in her report. Director Roy, have we done drug enforcement yet?
No, that's next.
Okay. Let's proceed with that.
So drug enforcement, you'll find on page 45 of your book, there's an overall decrease of $80,563. This is a non-tax-based fund. It also needs to be used for related drug remediation. The revenue side's increasing $6,000. We're keeping it conservative. And the fund balance at the end of year, fiscal year '25, is $959,489. The largest decrease you'll see is in the capital outlay for $69,802. This is decrease for the vehicles of $26,000, for the drug forfeiture portion of the replacement, and public safety equipment, $43,802 for a decrease of the purchase cost of 25 tasers that they had in fiscal year '26. Any questions on this?
Councilor Chittum.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. For my edification, this is not related to drug forfeiture money. This is separate money that's not tax revenue.
This is drug forfeiture money.
So that's a highly variable revenue, is it not?
And that's why we budget conservatively, not knowing what we are going to receive.
Okay, we received a memo recently that showed many millions of dollars, but that was be distributed among many different law enforcement agencies.
Is that the one that, yes, that we're supposed to receive, but it's accepting, yes, we don't know like what we're going to get out of that, what's going to be distributed to specifically to Lewiston PD.
Okay.
So anytime we have officers, basically what happens is any officers connected with a task force. So for example, FBI, HSI, HIDA, which is DEA, main drug also, whenever they do any kind of operation where they get money from forfeiture, our officers, even if it doesn't happen in Lewiston, for example, we usually receive funds from that.
Okay, and I'm sure it's a fairly extremely complicated formula that divvies that up. So, but the point is, I guess we are budgeting conservatively, anticipating that our drug forfeiture revenues are going to be lower than we think they will be.
Correct.
Thank you.
And Chief, sometimes it can take years to get that money, correct?
Yes, sometimes it takes 2 to 3 years before the case is resolved in the
Right.
courts. And then, for example, I think we presented one on the last council meeting where we just received $16,000. That generally takes 6 to 9 months even to receive those funds. So it's a lengthy process, and we've seen much less coming in recent years, and we've spent a lot more out of it. especially with the building.
Right. So even when we know we are getting money, it still takes a long time for it to hit our account.
Yes.
Okay. And so right now we have roughly 959,000 in that account to spend. Like that's money that we could spend right now.
I can give him what I have, unless you'd like to.
Yeah, that's fine, you can go.
I have, as of 3/23, we have 759,000 in there. However, there's 30,000 and some change that's going to be spent on this budget. And then we budgeted for this next budget, 226,000. So all said and done, it would leave us with $502,294. So about 500,000 left. as of-
That's the available amount.
If this budget goes through, that would be the available amount, yes.
Okay, thank you. Further questions from the council? Counselor Shuda, back to you.
To follow up on that, at the end of fiscal '25, we had 959,000 per year memo. What did we spend $200,000 on?
If you look at your column for 2026 actual, it's only till January 31st. So it's, as Chief said, she had numbers as of March. But if you look at those numbers, at the very bottom, it says available fund balance. So
I'm
as
sorry,
of,
what page are we on?
on page 45,
Thank you.
at the very bottom, you'll see that it says available fund balance. So your 2023, your 2024, and your 2025 are actual numbers that were audited. So those were ended numbers. And then you get into what we budgeted. If you look at what we budgeted for 2026, if they come in, it would end $695,315. If you look at go over another column to the actual for January 31st, as of January 31st, those are the revenues and expenses that came in. So as of January 31st, it ended with $493,678.
Okay, but what did we spend that money on? I know Chief St. Pierre purchased some firearms. And I think there were some other, oh yes, we bought lockers for the police station. Was that in, that was just recently, wasn't it? Well, it seems like a long time ago.
I can give you a couple examples. I don't have the entire list.
That's fine, thank you.
So for the FY '26, we bought the new pistols. Those were $86,000. We bought 40 of the Taser 7s. We needed new updated Tasers, so the plan was to do half of them last year. We plan on doing the other half this year. That was $126,890. And then equipment for changeovers, I believe that's with the cruisers, that was $47,000. So that's just to give you a couple big purchases from this past year.
Thank you, that's very helpful.
Councilor Najin.
I apologize. I'm actually going to step back a little bit. When we were talking about the base pay for a new officer, it was $97,000, right? But that didn't include equipment for the officer, correct? Like there's an equipment package that comes in with every officer, including the body-worn cameras, taser, all of that type of, if you can speak
It
to that.
did not include those. It just included the wage and all the fringe that would go with that officer. It does not include outfitting the officer.
And if we hire blue pins and they come in, let's say they have 5 years in, they're going to come in at step 5 for us as well, correct?
Yes.
Okay. I just wanted to clarify that. And I'm wondering, in the budget, are we accounting for that? Like if we're attracting officers that have been on the force, on some force for 5, 6, 7 years, are we accounting for that piece, or is that just the base salary that we're accounting for?
We put in, there's a couple different, it depends on for community resource, they're a little lower than the police officer. There's just, you budget within that line.
Kind of like a range? Okay,
Right.
so we're not using the absolute lowest and we're not using, okay.
No.
Thank you. I just wanted to check on that because I think it's important, if we're talking about bringing officers in from other departments that have experience, we want to make sure that in the budget we're accounting for that pay as well. That's all. Thank you.
Further questions for the chief? Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Are we now moving to Fire, Director Roy?
Correct.
We
We'll
have
wait
Chief
till Chief
Karen
comes up.
here.
You almost took her out.
Yeah. I'm glad that we've,
I was able to figure it out, crisis averted.
I'm very happy that we've sustained no injuries. Thank you so much for joining us, Chief Karen. Director Roy, please kick us off.
Fire is found on page 46 to 48 in your budget book. There's an overall increase of $1,171,374, or 12%. Fire administration is found on page 46, overall decrease of $12,226. The decrease is in contracted services for repairs for vehicles. The largest decrease is in telephones of $24,288. This is due to the firefighter stipends moving to their division. So their telephone stipends were in fire administration. We moved them into their division. Firefighters is on page 46 and 47. The overall increase is $1,000,001. The largest increase is in personal services of $838,132. This is due to the new contract for the firefighters. And under fixed costs, an increase of $220,000 for the hydrant rentals due to the water rate increase that we are recommending. The fire communications is on page 47. Overall increase of $3,690, all in personal services, again, due to the contract signed. Fire prevention is on page 47-48. Overall increase of $42,335, or 17%. All in personal services, increase of $41,967 for wages. Fire station on page 48. Overall increase of $32,968, or 17%. The largest increase is in Heaton for $36,366, which was originally budgeted in fuel in prior years. So you'll see an offset decrease in the fuel supplies of $25,424 for that increase. And then the LCIP can be found on page 25 of your LCIP book, is Lisbon Street Fire Station Replacement Project for $7,777,393, of which the city share is $7,041,687. With the sale of Main Street Fire Station, as I mentioned on the first night we had discussions, there is an estimated additional $25,000 for that sale that we're looking to put towards the fire station LCIP, so the city portion would be $7,016,687. Any questions for the chief?
Not all at once. Okay, Councilor Chittum.
Thank you. A couple of questions. One is the relocation of the telephone stipend. We're reducing administration by 24,000, but we're increasing firefighting by 31,000.
So there was an increase in the contract, where the stipend used to be $30 is now, I believe,
$37.50.
$50.
Okay, I raised this at a meeting recently. This is basically the full freight. This is for firefighter cell phones, is that correct?
Yes, they get a monthly
Can you
stipend.
speak into the mic, Chief?
Yeah, sorry. They get a stipend, and it used to be $30, and now it's $37.50, and it's paid monthly.
Okay, I pay $30 per line for my phone and my wife's phone. So effectively, we are providing firefighters with cell phones that they can use for anything. There's no limitation on their use, is that correct?
Well, I think they would disagree. I think most of their cell phone plans are probably more than $37.50. But we do pay them $37.50 a month in exchange for providing us their cell phone number as a means of communication.
Okay, but there's no limitation on how they use the phones?
That is correct. It is their personal cell phone.
Oh, I see, all right, okay. Yeah, I mentioned the other night, this sounds like a benefit to me that we're providing for firefighters, and I have trouble with actually paying for personal cell phones, even though they are used occasionally for city business.
Yeah, I think citywide, I think there's many city employees that receive the cell phone stipend. I think it's gone on for several years that I'm aware of.
Okay. And I'm not picking on the fire department, I'm picking on any employee-owned cell phone that's paid for by the city because it's used occasionally for city use. That's my problem here. The other issue I want to talk about is, or actually have someone explain to me and to the public, the new fire station.
Before we move on, could I just
Sir.
clarify one more point?
Absolutely.
So, the cell phone stipend is a contractual item and is not negotiable. I cannot change that. You have to fund it.
Thank you for clarifying that. And I would assume that's the case with cell phone, the stipends across the board with other unions as well?
It is, Councilor Chittum. That's in the CBA for all unions, and for non-union employees, it's in the personnel policy of a $30 stipend a month.
Okay, that's
And many
good.
employees get paid $30 a month, and they use their cell phone is used constantly for city business. So we don't limit what they can do with their phone because it's their personal phone.
Sure.
It's a benefit that's probably been in effect about 20 years. I think Director Gagnon brought this up. We used to have pagers, and we used to issue cell phones to people, and there was insurance on it. It was a real headache for our finance department, so that's when the city started transitioning to, excuse me, to the monthly stipends. It was cheaper for the city to do that than to issue phones to folks.
Okay, thank you for that thorough explanation, Deputy Administrator. I appreciate it. Moving on to the new fire station, can someone, either Director Roy or Chief Karen, talk about the congressionally directed spending, how much we've spent on that, what the deadlines are, and what effects there would be of postponing the construction of the new fire station, but doing as much advance work as possible to use up that money so we don't lose it?
Yeah, so the congressionally directed spending was from the federal FY23 budget. It came from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, and we applied through Senator Collins' office. We did apply for funding for the Station 3 replacement as well, and the city applied for other projects as well under that same grant program, and I think they were awarded. I think there was the Riverwalk and maybe Bates Mill 5 was also some projects that go under that same program. It is a 10-year runoff period, although the math doesn't really add up for me because the hard end date is September 15th, 2031. All expenses, all reimbursable expenses must be submitted by that date. So the grant is for $1 million. We've spent 25 to 30% of it already. Land acquisition. Part of the grant is I had to make a budget and allocate the money, and so it was for engineering, land purchase, construction. So we have acquired the land. We've done some wetland surveys. We have, like I said, spent 25 to 30% of it. I talked to the architect today. We are still working on this going forward. The city engineering staff is doing a lot of work for us on this. The downside of not spending that money or completing the project by the closeout date is that we will have to pay that money back.
If I could clarify, it's not that the money has to be spent, it's that the fire station has to be built and occupied and the ribbon cut and the project complete.
The project must be complete by 2031 or we'll have to pay that money back.
Okay, so that's 5 years out. The Captain Bazinet, I'd refresh my memory from start to finish on that project. How long a project was that?
I would have to go research that, but from the time the plans went out to bid, by the time they developed, well, as an engineer, you're probably more familiar with this than I am, but by the time they developed the bid set and sent it out to bid, and They evaluated the bids, awarded the contracts, mobilization. They had to wait to a certain construction window to get, because of the winter weather. I don't know. I mean, it's years in the making. I mean, I don't know the exact time from start to finish, but.
Let me ask the question another way. Is September 15th, 2031 not achievable if we make any delays? If any delays in the project, would they impact the ability to complete it by September 2031?
I'm unable to predict the future. I don't know. And I had the same discussion with the planning board last evening, is that if it gets delayed this year, will we be having the same discussion next year?
Mr. Mayor?
1 second, Deputy Administrator. Were you finished, Chief Karen?
I am, if I answered your question correctly.
1 second, Councilor Chittum. Yes, Deputy
I
Administrator
just wanted to
O'Malley.
continue on the chief's response, Councilor Chittum. When the original application was filed with Senator Collins' office, part of our application process was explaining the emergent need to replace that Lisbon Street Fire Station. So we portrayed it as we needed to get this done. When I came over from the police department, we were working on Bazinet Way. That took several years. It's been several years just to find the land that would meet the requirements of the fire department and their response times. We've done a lot of work on it. I've heard from Senator Collins' office that they're saying, well, you said you needed this money right away. We're hoping that you will go forward with this project. And they did reiterate the fact that we would have to pay it back if we don't complete this project.
Thank you. And I have seen the pictures of the Main Street Fire Station. I'm sorry, the number 3 station. And they are horrific. There's no doubt that this is a needed project. I'm just looking at the finances and the fiscal situation in Lewiston this year and saying, with the revaluation, with the costs over which we have no control, labor contracts, insurances, debt service, everything is going up. We are beginning to see numbers coming through now that look as though some, if not many, residents will see a doubling of their taxes this year. And I'm looking at every way possible to mitigate that. And unfortunately, one of the ways that I'd like to explore is a $7 million fire station, and whether a 1-year delay will create an untenable risk for the city. I appreciate Senator Collins' office asking about this, but this, I believe, is a HUD grant, and HUD has established the deadlines. HUD has said this date, September 15th, 2031, is the date by which the project must be completed. I understand the political ramifications of Senator Collins arguing that we argued this was a dire necessity. Senator Collins may not be there to carry this. I'm not saying this very well, but there are politics involved here, and there are bureaucracies, and I think the hard end date is a bureaucratic date rather than a political date. And given the financial situation that we're in this year, I think that it's incumbent on all of us to look at ways that we can reduce the financial impact of city operations across all departments this year. So that's my spiel. I didn't ask a question there, I'm sorry, but thank you for your service, and I very much agree that this station is needed. My disagreement is that my question is it needed this year? Thank you.
Thank you. Director Roy, when we spend LCIP money, that does not affect the tax rate, or am I confused?
We usually go out to bond 2 years after the LCIP is approved. So therefore, it would not come on the debt for 2 years. And if I can just mention, looking at the Main Street, it looks like the project started back in 2021 when they approved the first portion to start doing the assessment of the property. So it ended March of 2026. was when we finalized. So it does take quite a long time from start to finish to get this done.
Understood, Director Roy, but in this case, we've already purchased the property, correct, and done substantial work?
Correct. I was just giving you a estimate of what it took for Main Street from start to finish.
Right. I guess the point that I'm making is we're not at the beginning with this project.
Technically, we are. We do have the land, but all of the architect and all of that has to start up.
Okay, gotcha. Councilor Najin, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So a few things. The HUD grant is how much are we talking about again? How many dollars?
1 million.
1 million? Okay. Also, just from experience, I know that anything that is delayed concerning construction is concerned never gets cheaper. Normally gets more expensive. This is almost universal. I've never seen anything come down as far as if you wait 2, 3, 4 years to get a project started, it's going to be more expensive. I also think that when we talk about the Main Street project, that was during COVID, when there were definitely supply chain and work issues when we first started it, right? And I think that affected some of the, like, it doesn't normally take 5 years to get a fire
So
station
the
built,
Main
correct?
Street was just post-COVID, but Station 4 was during COVID, and they did experience a lot of problems.
Okay. I'm just weighing all of these pieces out to kind of put them in the public eye. We would not be carrying the cost for borrowing for 2 more budget years. Is that
2
correct?
more years, correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Station 4, that's the Temple Street location, correct?
North Temple Street.
North
yes.
Temple, thank you.
I also want to add that the numbers for this were based on similar projects, recently submitted bids for similar projects. So I don't know what the price will be 2 years from now. This is what I estimate the price is right now, but I don't know.
Thank you. Further questions for our chief, Director Roy? I think we're set. Thank you.
Okay, great, thank you.
And Director Roy, can you give us a preview of Thursday night's meeting?
So Thursday night will be intergovernmental, 911, and transit will be here. Airport could not make it. They will be coming on March 31st to do their presentation. We'll have social services, library, debt, miscellaneous, and revenues and planning and code on Thursday.
Okay, thank you so much. Appreciate both chiefs being here. Thank you so much, and have a great night, Lewiston. Thank you, councilors. And Director Roy, thank you.